Walter, your group has joined some congressional Democrats calling for the DOJ to investigate Thomas for his non-disclosures. In a filing today, you wrote, circumstances surrounding the concealment of these reportable items strongly support the conclusion that these violations of the law were knowing and willful. What are the circumstances you're referring to?
You know, one of the biggest circumstances is that Justice Thomas disclosed these kind of items before, until an embarrassing 2004 article came out in the LA Times, and then he stopped disclosing them. Then there's the fact that the law is absolutely clear on this. None of this is ambiguous, contrary to what he and his defenders would have you think. And then there's simply the fact that other justices have disclosed these kinds of things. And then a final circumstance is that every one of the 4 supervising ethics offices in the government, 1 for each branch and 2 in the Congress, have issued very plain guidance on all of this. So there's no excuse for Justice Thomas to not have known. It's not plausible that he didn't know that these were disclosable.
Michael, let's talk about the history here. The Ethics in Government Act, it was passed in the aftermath of the Watergate scandal in '78. Right. What reporting requirements did that law institute for judges? And I guess the even bigger question, 45 years later, are they enough?
They're not enough. And as we have seen, you know, it depended on the fact that Supreme Court justices would be honorable enough to report big financial transactions. You know, Clarence Thomas is on a government salary. This real estate deal is, what, $133,000 plus? He has taken millions of dollars in trips and other favors from Harlan Crow over 2 decades. These are not small amounts of money. And for him to claim that he didn't think this was important enough to put in his disclosure, that just defies credibility. This is corrupt. This is the guy who's supposedly making moral judgments on the Supreme Court about every other American's behavior.
Walter, I want to read you something from the Washington Post reporting on another potential disclosure mishap by Thomas, that he's for years claimed income from a defunct real estate firm. The Post says that the error, regardless of whether it was a simple paperwork error, raises questions about how seriously Thomas views his responsibility to accurately report his finances to the public. What's your response to that, Walter?
Yeah, I think they're absolutely right, because we don't know exactly what went on with the name change of that company or whether he dissolved it and created another one, but it's part of a much larger pattern. And that's the problem, is that Justice Thomas keeps forgetting, conveniently, that things are reportable. In 2011, he had to go back and disclose 20 years of employer information for his spouse. You know, I just want to add that Thomas says he's going to disclose this transaction now, but part of that transaction was the gift of free rent to his mother, and that, too, is disclosable as a gift to Justice Thomas, which he knows because he previously disclosed a gift of $5,000 cash for his grandnephew's education. So he understands that a gift can be given to someone else for you, and you have to disclose it as a gift.
Michael Beschloss, darn you and your excellent tweeting, because it is one of the reasons that I find myself unable to leave Twitter. You tweeted in regards to Chief Justice John Roberts, you can't do zero about serious evidence of possible gross corruption by justices of the Supreme Court, and at the same time complain that Americans don't have the high respect for the court that they used to. Talk to me about the risk, as you see it, if these calls for Chief Justice Roberts and the Justice Department to investigate Justice Thomas result in nothing.
Well, Alicia, as usual, you and I communicate. I was indeed talking about Chief Justice Roberts, not very subtly. You know, he's been watching this stuff. He knows what's going on. He's seen other possible allegations of corruption on the Supreme Court, from the payment of Kavanaugh's debts to the withdrawal of Justice Kennedy from the Supreme Court, whose son was a banker at Deutsche Bank with Donald Trump. All sorts of things like this, but nothing ever happens. And at the same time, Chief Justice Roberts, as nice a man as he is, gives these public speeches saying that he laments the decline in respect for the court. May I mention one historical thing, Alicia?
Always.
Abe Fortas was on the Supreme Court, LBJ appointee. 1969, he was forced to resign by his colleagues. Why? Number one, he took $20,000 from a crony with a promise of possibly taking more. But the other part of this is even more relevant to Thomas. Fortas was accused of being too close to the president, helping him too much secretly politically, even helping to write speeches. Well, Clarence Thomas is under serious allegations of his wife being involved in a coup d'etat, an insurrection against the United States on the 6th of January, possibly involved with her husband. The other string on this bow is not just financial, but this is someone who, if these allegations are true, has been much too close to President Trump and has violated the separation of powers.